Israel and Hezbollah have spent another night trading heavy fire as the conflict escalates. Wednesday began with Israel launching extensive strikes on Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon. Hezbollah says that it fired a rocket targeting Israeli military intelligence headquarters near Tel Aviv early this morning. The militant group also confirming that an Israeli airstrike in Beirut on Tuesday killed one of its senior commanders. Lebanese health officials say Israeli air bombardments, marked here in red, have killed more than 560 people since Monday. Tens of thousands of people in southern Lebanon have fled Israel's attacks. Now, across the border, thousands of Israelis have also left their homes, fleeing rockets fired by Hezbollah from southern Lebanon. Israeli leaders say that this new offensive against Hezbollah will help those residents return home. DW correspondent Tanya Kramer has more now from Haifa in northern Israel.
The news is a constant reminder of the volatile situation. Jonathan Cohen and his family evacuated their home almost a year ago, following the October 7th Hamas terror attacks. Their home was located in the area bordering Lebanon. After several months of moving from place to place, they found somewhere to stay in Haifa. Cohen is one of an estimated 60,000 Israelis who have been unable to return to the north because of Hezbollah attacks.
I do support a wider operation. I'm afraid I have many friends, I have family, I have a lot of people that I know that could be going into Lebanon or Gaza, but we have to solve it for once and for all. We have to solve it. It's got to be done.
Hezbollah has extended the range of its attacks deeper into Israel and is using heavier weapons. Israel says it aims to remove the threat posed by the militant group and return displaced residents to northern Israel. It has become a war goal for the Netanyahu government, a goal that opposition leader and former war cabinet member Benny Gantz also supports.
We have no choice but to defend ourselves. It's true that we are stronger than the others, but it doesn't mean we are not right. We are right. Our cause is right. We have no interest in Lebanon other than security. And if Hezbollah wants to destabilize this area, he will pay. The government of Lebanon, unfortunately, will pay as well.
Lebanese authorities say hundreds of people have been killed in Israeli airstrikes since Monday, and tens of thousands more have fled the bombing. Israel has accused Hezbollah of hiding its weapons in homes and villages in Lebanon.
Israel is doing everything it can to prevent harm for civilians. While Hezbollah is hiding behind them and shooting at our civilians, we're doing everything we can.
So this bomb shelter is for...
Jonathan Cohen is prepared for the situation to get worse.
I know it could get really ugly and devastating, but hopefully it would be the last time. Otherwise it wouldn't be worth it. We've sacrificed a lot. Hopefully it's the last time.
Hope, but no certainty that they can soon return to their homes.
We have team coverage with DW's Tanya Kramer joining us now from Haifa in northern Israel, and in Beirut is Mohammed Shreita. He's our Beirut bureau chief. Good morning to both of you. Tanya, let me start with you. It is day 3 of violence that is escalating by the day, it seems. How does the situation look this morning?
Well, it certainly depends where you are. We're here in Haifa. It has been a relatively quiet moment, but we can hear interceptions or incoming rockets last night. We could see them when they are launched at other areas here in northern Israel. So there have been air raid sirens and alarms going off there. And basically for people here, you know, while in Haifa maybe people would say, well, their daily life continues, it is not quite a normal situation, because always in the back of your mind something could happen. And it wasn't such a quiet moment in central Israel, mainly in the Tel Aviv area, where one of the deepest launches yet had happened early in the morning, reportedly targeting the headquarters of the Mossad in retaliation for the attacks last week. Saying this, the Israeli military has already said they retaliated also in southern Lebanon with, of course, as we look across the border, their devastating consequences for the civilian population.
Yeah, let me go to Mohammed now. As we heard, Hezbollah is now targeting Tel Aviv, launching rockets towards Tel Aviv. What more can you tell us?
So Hezbollah issued a brief statement this morning saying that it launched a ballistic missile, Qadr-1, aimed at a base used by the Mossad near Tel Aviv. The militant group says it's responsible of the assassinations, the series of assassinations of its leaders and the device explosions last week. Now, the missile was intercepted according to the Israeli military, but this is a very significant message by Hezbollah, who for long talked about what it calls the Dahi doctrine, and this is an equation announced by the group leader Hassan Nasrallah after the 2006 war, the last major war it fought with Israel back in 2006, and is simply based on, you target Dahi, that's the Beirut southern suburb, and we will target Tel Aviv. Now, this news was perceived with a lot of caution and anxiety here in Beirut, for everyone fears that this war is expanding and extending across the country.
Tanya, we've heard from Israeli leaders saying that this offensive is to ensure that residents can return to their homes in northern Israel. Do we know what Israel is planning next?
No, we don't know with certainty what they're planning next. But if you're talking to people here, basically they're expecting this to go on for quite some time. And there's also a lot of uncertainty about the next steps. When you ask people, those who had to evacuate last year, they even say, we don't know exactly what we need to see to get the sense of security to get back to our places. Now, there are different scenarios, of course, being discussed here with a lot of military experts as well. So at the moment we're seeing this aerial offensive continuing with full force in southern Lebanon and other areas. So this is of course at a high cost for civilians there in Lebanon, but there's also of course talk about a possible ground invasion that would be very risky for Israel in a sense. But there's also the sense that while the military says they have taken out a lot of Israel, a lot of targets, Hezbollah targets or military targets as they describe it, a lot of weapons and stockpile. There's also the sense here that Hezbollah has a huge stockpile of weapons and can also resupply those weapons. So there will be still a threat, a major threat to Israel. And in the light of that, there's no really a diplomatic efforts or something that at least we don't know of publicly, diplomatic efforts or pressure going on. This could go on for quite some time.
And Mohammed, we're talking about a conflict between Israel and Hezbollah, but what about the Lebanese government? How is it dealing with this situation?
So the mood, the scene in Lebanon, it all indicates that the country is at war. The main roads and highways in the capital are almost empty on my way here to the office. But, inside the neighborhoods and the internal streets, it's really packed. It's overcrowded. You can see hundreds of cars already parked on the sideways. And that's because thousands of refugees from the south are staying now at their relatives and friends here in Beirut. Yesterday, the Lebanese Minister of Foreign Affairs said that the country recorded 500,000 refugees. I would say this number is not necessarily up to date. Many of these refugees are sheltering in public schools now. Others are still gathering in parking lots across Beirut, awaiting accommodation. The government has activated its emergency plan and is trying to react to this influx of refugees. But we have to remember Lebanon has been in the deepest financial and economic crisis in its modern history for 4 years now, and the caretaker government's ability to respond and the resources are very limited.
Okay, DW's Tanya Kramer in the northern city of Haifa in Israel, and our Beirut Bureau Chief Mohammed Schrater. To both of you, thank you.
David Daoud is a senior fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. He joins me now for more on this. David, welcome to the show. We've seen that the Israeli military has struck hundreds of targets in a relatively short period of time. Help us understand the intensity of that operation and what it suggests might be coming next.
Thank you for having me on. As you noted, the Israelis have severely intensified their attacks in Lebanon. This is a continuation of the cabinet's decision last week to ensure that the civilians that have been displaced from northern Israel can return to their homes safely. The tit for tat that was going on for the 11 months prior simply did not suffice. And now the Israelis have not just expanded the footprint of those attacks, they've gone up. I mean, yesterday there were 1,600 attacks alone. And the targets of those attacks have been Hezbollah's arsenal, but also their leadership. And they're crossing Hezbollah's red lines, where for so long Beirut was kind of off limits to Israeli strikes. And now we're seeing almost every other day a strike in Beirut targeting Hezbollah's senior leadership. So it's a notable escalation from where the Israelis were just a week and a half ago.
How large could this campaign grow when we look at Israel's stated goal of putting northern residents out of harm's way?
Well, I think in the immediate term, what we're going to see is a continuation of this intensification. It's almost a contest of wills. Hezbollah has committed to continue attacking Israel until there is a prior Gaza ceasefire. Its Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah, after the telecommunications device attack, added the West Bank, the cessation of Israeli operations in the West Bank, to that condition just a few days ago, and they would look weak if they back off from that goal. So for the Israelis, it's going to be depending upon them to make to inflict enough pain upon Hezbollah to where continuing this campaign is no longer worth it. If that doesn't work, we could see further intensification or potentially a ground maneuver. But for the time being, I think we're going to see a lot of what we've been seeing for the past week and a half.
We've seen already more than 500 deaths so far from these airstrikes. Why can't Israel do more to prevent civilian deaths if its goal is these militants from Hezbollah?
Well, look where these civilian deaths are happening. They're in areas that are predominantly controlled by Hezbollah. And this owes to Hezbollah intertwining its military assets with the civilian environment. It's almost unavoidable, unfortunately, that when you're trying to target Hezbollah's rocket arsenal or their fighters, if they're fighting from civilian areas, from built-up civilian areas, if they're in place, if they're meeting in civilian areas, if they're putting a whole arsenal under a building and you have to take out that weapons cache, it's impossible to avoid the civilian death, even when you issue warnings for the civilians to vacate those areas prior to that.
David, briefly, you touched on this before, but how weakened is Hezbollah following last week's attack on pagers and radios? Briefly, if you can.
I think they're definitely on their back heels, but Hezbollah is a professional organization. Will they suffer a setback? Of course, but we should not consider them kind of out for the fight just yet.
All right, that's David Daoud with the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. David, thank you.
Thank you so much.